session is on setting up a training assessment within FastTrack for either inductions or for ongoing in training. So let's start the actual process within FastTrack. So if we go into the skills and training module, we then get a list of competencies, position profiles, training programs, people skills and assessments. The first step is you need to set up the modules that you're going to want to train in, or the skills and services. So that's done through the competency function, and then you should have a live record compliance modules. Now, selecting those, you'll have a list here of programs that or skills that need to be set up. Now, having defined which skills will need to be trained in, is to have a set of questions that we want the people answer as part of an assessment of the training material. So the way we do that is through the training program area. Under internal courses, we can also set up templates for generic questions we want to ask. Now, I've got one here set up already. If I go into it, this registration awareness course. So this is just to set up information on the course. But if we scroll down to the bottom, there is on the bottom lower process menu, there is a tab saying checklist. If we click on checklist, it will give us a list of the current questions that are set up for this type of assessment. So when we're looking at reading of company policies and procedures, we ask the simple questions. If I wanted to, I can open any of these by selecting it and then clicking on it a second time, and it will open that question and I can change it. So against any question, I have the actual question I want the trainee to see. I can put in additional guidance information to come up on the screen to explain further what I mean by my question. And then the system allows me to put in a series of up to 9 options for them to choose from as an answer to that question. Down the bottom, I then have which one of these options is the correct option, so when they're completing the assessment, we know whether they've got the question right or wrong. Return back to the list of assessment questions. I can also, through this checklist button, if I just point at it, I will get a drop-down menu and I can add a question. As I mentioned at the start or earlier on, this, when I'm going into internal courses, this is just purely a template I want to use. Now what I need to do, having set up that template, I can then go to each of the assessments I've created. I click on assessments. I've got a separate list of induction, and I've also got for retraining purposes assessments. You would need to set up, for each of the modules, you need to create a corresponding assessment record in this library. I can click on it to highlight it, then click on it again to open it, and I have a series of pieces of information, generally about the about this assessment. So I've got a scope down the bottom here. Now, the first piece of information we need to do is specify what the training material is we want. This will be published on the portal for them. It could be any type of file. It could be a Word document. It could be, in this case, a PowerPoint, or it could even be a video. For the training material, we want it to be available to new staff prior to them joining. For that to be the case, we want the data or the training material to be published into our portal where they can be given access to it, because until they've actually completed their induction, they can't have access to FastTrack. So using our browse button, we can navigate to the pub folder. The pub folder is the folder, the portal folder. So clicking on pub, I then have a list of all the files that are currently on the portal, one of which will be this training material that we're talking about. So here I have the Human Resources PowerPoint. To select it, there's a little page icon to the left of the title. If I click on it, it will return it back into the screen. So I now have selected that PowerPoint for this assessment. The next thing I need to select is over the side here is the source of the questions. Now the source of the questions, I can use a whole series of things, but what we really want to do is use a template that I reviewed a short time ago, which is the Registration Obligation Awareness one. So by selecting it, it will copy the questions for that template into this assessment. I can also have who's in charge of this assessment and other assessment people involved. But for the basic purpose, that's all we need to have for it. So hitting OK, using the breadcrumb, I can return back to the list of functions within the training module. So I've now got my assessment set up. So that is a summary of how to set up inductions.